Allegra here from Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. Thank you for joining me. If it's your first time, I am live. I can see your questions. And if you have something relevant to today's discussion, I would be happy to answer it. And if you're listening to the recording, this does go up as the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. So you can always re listen to it there. And if you make a comment there, I will see it. It might just take me a little longer to get back to you. And thank you for joining me. As always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. It costs you nothing and it helps me to know what content is relevant to you. And today's topic, I have been on a season of self-care trend. If you've been following me the last few months, and you know that I am talking about self-care because I know that in my life, when things get nutty, it's important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, especially as we get older, because our bodies don't have the bandwidth to withstand stress the same way younger bodies do. Not that younger bodies should not be taking care of themselves. They absolutely should. And I know that I had my first major burnout issue uh, with self-care by not taking care of myself, like when I was 21. So we're all different. I tend to really express my stress in my body. My body is the one that reminds me, hey, maybe you're not taking care of yourself. And I know that I've been having a lot of feelings about everything going on in the world right now. And because of that, that's why I'm focusing on self-care. So I started with skincare because you might not know that touching your face releases the same chemicals as giving someone a hug. So it's really good for you. Then I went into things I put into my body. If you click on this QR code right here, you can sign up for my 3-step morning hydration ritual, which includes this green smoothie there. You'll find out exactly what's in it by subscribing to this. And if you're listening to the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, if you go to my website, I'm trying to find the other. Oh, wait, no, here it is. If you go to subscribepage.com/3 steps, subscribe page, all one word, .com/3 steps. That's where you will find that QR code. So welcome. Today I'm talking about supplements that I take. And this is all, again, if you sign up for this QR code, I'm kind of doing these little blocks. So the first block was skincare. There's a separate QR code for skincare, which you can actually click here. That's subscribepage.com/7 steps. That's the 7 steps for skincare. Then the one all about hydration is the subscribepage.com/3 steps. And actually you can find all of the podcasts about self-care consolidated on a site. If you go to my webpage and then you type in season self-care at the end, you will find all of the videos. I think there are 9 of them right now. In the skincare one, I actually do my full skincare routine on some of those. So if you're curious, you can check those out. But I just think self-care is so important right now as things can feel overwhelming. Hello, Flovers. Nice to see you. Things can feel overwhelming, and so it's important to take care of yourself. So today is the last day of the things that I, take into my body, such as the things I drink, the things I eat, and the supplements I take, which I'm about to show you. Next week, I'm going to be talking about movement, the movement that I do. Now that I'm older, I don't have any interest in exercising the way I used to when I was younger. I find it harder and harder to motivate myself to do things that are like doing a HIIT routine or going to a class. Like, it just doesn't interest me. And so I have found some ways to work movement into my life in a more organic manner, where I'm outside more often, I'm with friends more often, and I've just found it to be way more enjoyable, and I stick with it much better. And I feel stronger and healthier than I have in a long time, actually, with these practices, including a lot of fascia work, which, if you haven't heard of fascia, I'm so excited to introduce you to it because honestly, I do a lot of fascia work every day, literally from the top of my head. See, I'm going to do some right now to the bottom of my feet, because fascia is one of those things, if you're not familiar with it, basically one way fascia is described is that your body would basically be a meat smoothie without fascia to give it shape. So if you cut a chicken breast in half and you see all those layers, the reason you see the layers is because there's fascia in between the layers of muscle. So kind of like a croissant where the butter is in between the flour to give you the layers, except when you cut the croissant after it's cooked, you don't see the butter because it's been absorbed into the wheat. Same thing with the chicken breast. When you cut it, you no longer see those layers because the fascia there is so fine, it's kind of like a gelatin. It just dissolves away. However, we have some really big pieces of fascia in our body, like the plantar, like if you've ever heard of someone having plantar fasciitis, there's a big piece of fascia along the bottom of your foot that's almost like a tendon, if you will. Anyway, you have fascia crisscrossing your body all over the place. Apparently, there's one piece of fascia that attaches your tongue to your foot. I have not looked into that fully, but the thing that I've learned with fascia is that you have to work on all of it because if this is really loose and this is really tight, then you get these imbalances and things start getting pulled. So I'm excited to talk about fascia, as you can see. But today I'm going to be talking about supplements. But before I get into it, I'm going to do some of the standard things that I like to do at the top of my show. I don't know if you are familiar, but my show is heard by people in over 90 countries. And recently, there's been some changing in those top countries that are in my top 10 listeners. And I just wanted to say that I've been so curious about the places that people are listening to me that I have been wanting to share facts about those places because a lot of these places I haven't been to. Last week I talked about Bangladesh. Today I'm talking about the Ukraine. The Ukraine has recently inched its way into my top 10 listener places that I get listeners from. Hello, Ukraine. I feel for you. One of my dear, dear friends is Ukrainian. He actually was part of, he's older than me. He was actually part of the cleanup at Chernobyl. It's his stories are crazy. He also is like very Hulk-ish. So sometimes I wonder if the radiation somehow, wonderful man. I love him a lot. But so interesting facts about the Ukraine. Kiev is one of the largest cities in Europe. Apparently, in the 13th century, Kiev was actually 50 times larger than London, with a population of 50,000 people. It doesn't say why the population went down, but I think that's really fascinating. A famous George Gershwin song known by the name Summertime, which I think you've all probably heard that, summertime and the living is easy, is based on a Ukrainian lullaby. And I cannot pronounce it, but I cannot wait to go listen to that lullaby because that sounds fantastic. Now, although a lot of us refer to it as the Ukraine, apparently just calling it Ukraine is preferred. So I will work on changing my language because I feel like I've been using the forever, but Ukraine. And it is one of the most fertile countries in Europe, commonly referred to as the breadbasket of Europe. So thank you, Ukraine, for listening. I am thinking about you. I talk to my friend frequently about his experience, and I mean, he has a child over there he has grandchildren over there. So very challenging. So I am going to pull my card from my little deck of positive chaos here. I call it positive chaos because one, it's always positive things in it, but chaos because I don't read them in advance. So I have no idea what it's going to say. Let's see. Oh, I love this. Laughter is a powerful way to tap positive emotions. Oh my gosh. Laughter is a powerful way to tap positive emotions. Norman Cousins. Honestly, I could not agree more. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, hello, Omar from Houston, Texas. Thank you for joining me. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, you might not know that I do stand-up comedy for fun. And I'm not casual about it. I'm not just going to open mics, actually perform and produce a show that has sold out every time I've produced it. Started producing it last year. I will be producing it for the fourth, fifth, and sixth times this year. Very exciting. And every show has been sold out. I guess I have number 5 coming up. Oh my gosh, can't believe it. And people ask me, why are you doing this thing? And the reason I do comedy is to bring people together. My show is called Soy Saucy. It's a stand-up comedy show featuring all Asian and Latin comedians. And if you can't tell from looking at me, Asian and Latin is my mix, which is why my comedy show features Asian and Latin comedians, because I just love hearing the stories of people who we have something in common and yet we have nothing in common and yet we have everything in common, right? Because we all have different situations and yet we're all concerned about the same things. We all have challenging stories from our childhood, maybe things that our parents did to us that we would do differently. We have, the funny things that happen in normal life growing up. That's what I just talk about a lot. I just talk about normal life stuff, like how my teenager can give me a compliment and a put down in the same sentence. Yes, because the other day I was wearing, cargo pants and a black t-shirt and I had a messy bun. And she looked at me so wistfully and she said, "Mom, someday I hope I can be just like you and not care what people think about how I look." Right? Like kids just say hilarious things. And so what I love about my show, Soy Saucy, is that in some ways you might think each of us comedians have nothing in common. I have one comedian who's Colombian Polish, another who is Irish Burmese, another who is Japanese and Caucasian, and me, Chinese and Mexican. And yet we all have the same funny stories and complaints, and we can all relate to each other. And as Norman Cousin says, laughter is a powerful way to tap into positive emotions, and we need more positivity in the world. And by the way, I'm talking about comedy that's not mean. I'm not a fan of mean comedy. I'm not a fan of vulgar comedy. I'm a fan of the comedy that brings us together as humans and taps into that positive emotion. So if you haven't seen a comedy show recently, go see one. It's my favorite way to spend my time, and I really believe in the power of comedy to come together. I mean, there's nothing more humanizing than being in a room of laughing strangers. So, thank you, Norman Cousins. Oh, yes, and if you're wondering why I talk about the things I talk about, I've written these 4 short read books that are all designed to help you find more time and energy in your day. And the reason why I focus on self-care a lot, in fact, I have one book that's all about self-care called Rock Your Morning. And you can find all of these on my website, bywdreams.com. But the reason why I talk about self-care so much is because I know that if you aren't taking care of yourself, bywdreams.com, if you aren't taking care of yourself, then your time and energy aren't going to be able to be spent on other things besides your health. Having been bedridden for 3 months with back issues in my 30s, because I wasn't taking care of myself, it became my full-time job taking care of myself. I'd put off taking care of myself for so long that my body entered a, acute phase of pain where I had no choice but to take care of myself. And that's the fact, is if you don't take time to take care of yourself, your body will make you do it. Like, I don't know if you've ever had this happen where you go on vacation and your body is like, "Well, now's a perfect time for you to get sick because now you have the time." I have gotten sick on vacation, back when I was younger, many times because I wasn't taking care of myself in my day-to-day life. However, I have been so burnt out that I have asked to be taken to the hospital, and I no longer do that anymore because I learned my lesson. And so self-care is one of the ways you keep yourself out of burnout so that you can have the time to pursue bigger goals that you have, like starting that business or writing that book or going back to school, whatever it is. If you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to have the time and energy to pursue those goals. So that's how I think about self-care. So today I'm going to talk about supplements, and I just dropped one on the ground, so excuse me as I pick it up. Now, I will confess that I have been an on and off user of supplements. It's kind of been something that I've done based on the stage of my life. The first time, I got into supplements a little bit when I was in college because I wasn't eating very well. And my father was a big fan of supplements, vitamins specifically. And he said, "You're sick all the time. Take these vitamins." And I found that they helped. I found that I was not getting sick as often. And I mean, literally, I would get sick once a month when I was in college because, again, burnout. And I wasn't eating well. And so I guess these vitamins helped to fill in the nutrients that I wasn't getting because of my diet. And then in my 20s, I kind of didn't really pay too much attention to supplements. The next time I really remember paying attention to supplements was in my 30s when I started reading books about getting pregnant. And I read this one book that was talking about how vitamin D, I have it right here. See, it's this little gelatin capsule. Vitamin D, and this is vitamin D3 very specifically, is more properly thought of as a pre-hormone than as a vitamin. Now, again, I'm not a medical professional. I don't play one on the internet. I can't tell you the exact difference between a vitamin and a pre-hormone, but it said that it was super important for the baby developing in utero. So I went to my doctor, I got my blood drawn, and I forget what the numbers are exactly. I want to say somewhere between like 25 and 75 is supposed to be a healthy range for your vitamin levels. I was like a 9. So low. So low. And the doctor was like really surprised by this. And the doctor that I asked, he said, "You want to check your vitamin D? That's interesting." And this was about 20 years ago. So 2006. He said, "Why is that?" And I told him, and he said, "I'm not familiar with that." So we looked at my vitamin D levels, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to start supplementing." So I started supplementing, and then I think I had my blood tested again 3 months later, and I had brought it up to like 22. And I kept bringing it up until it was kind of around 50. And then I was like, "Okay, great. That's a good place to be. Now I can get pregnant." And incidentally, in between, while I was testing this, my doctor, my OBGYN, he spoke to a friend who's an endocrinologist, and he said, "I'm tested." He said, "I talked to the endocrinologist. He confirmed everything you said about vitamin D. I checked my vitamin D. I'm low. I'm supplementing now, and I'm having all my patients check their vitamin D levels." So he found it really compelling. The interesting thing is that, there are some supplements that we're told we have to take when we're pregnant. Folic acid is one of them. Vitamin D is not. And it's interesting because I did a lot of work for a supplement company, and it might take another 20 years or so before vitamin D becomes something that's required, but I do think it will happen at some point because it took like 30 or 40 years for folic acid to move from something that was known about and they said, "Oh, this might be kind of important," to people were starting to take it, to the government saying this absolutely should be taken. So vitamin D is supposed to be really important. What the science says, helps with mood, helps with your immune system. So vitamin D, that's when I started taking supplements again, was in preparing for getting pregnant. So I took, the prenatal, I took the folic acid, although I did have my body tested for folic acid, and I actually had a really high level already. And that was because of all the greens I eat, all the kale I eat. And actually at this time I was a vegetarian. So my doctor was very impressed by my high levels of folic acid. But I was taking, a pre-pregnancy supplement, folic acid, and vitamin D in order to prepare for getting pregnant. Okay. The next time I really started thinking about supplements for myself was about 7 years ago when I was in my approximately 4th year of perimenopause. Now, you might be surprised that I can be so specific with this. Look, our hormones are, going up for a long time and they're stable for decades and then they're slowly declining. So maybe I think at this point I've been in perimenopause for at least 11 years, but it might have been sooner. It was probably dropping off before 11 years. But I can tell you 11 years because 11 years ago my periods went from 12 a year to 11. And then the next year they went to 10, 9, 8. They literally were I was just losing one period a year until about 4 or 5 years ago when I went from like 5 to 3. Also around that time, I had no symptoms. Yes, I was losing periods, but I had no other symptoms, no hot flashes, no waking up in the middle of the night. By the way, there are way more symptoms than that with regards to perimenopause. I mean, like frozen shoulder is related to perimenopause. There's so many things that estrogen does for our bodies and our brains, our whole bodies that you might be experiencing the symptoms of it and just have no idea. By the way, men also have estrogen in their bodies. Men also have estrogen in their brains, just like women do. So, I sometimes feel bad. I don't know how often men are talking about their own hormone changes, but men, I am very active with my husband's supplement routine, and he takes a lot of the things that I take, with some small differences, which I will point out. So, when perimenopause hit, I had already read this book called What Your Doctor Won't Tell You About Perimenopause. And by the way, if you are interested in any of these things, if you go to tinyurl.com/my Amazon picks, you'll see I have a whole list of items under perimenopause and including the books that I'm going to mention. Okay. So tinyurl.com/my Amazon picks, and that's PICKS. So I had read that book, and the one nugget I got from that book was this herb called chasteberry. The Latin name is Vitex, Vitex. It's been used in Europe for thousands of years for all things related to women's health, which I guess is why it's called chasteberry, although it seems like it should be called fertleberry. But anyway, and so I started waking up in the middle of the night. That was, I think, the first symptom that I had. And I started taking chasteberry, and the recommended dose was 1 in the morning, 1 at night. And I found that sort of seemed to be too much for me. And the only way to describe how it was too much for me is super TMI, so prepare yourself. But I just felt like things were very moist everywhere. Okay. So I downgraded to just 1 at night, and that took care of that issue. And it also took care of me waking up in the middle of the night. And I was great for about a year, maybe a year and a half. I don't remember because now it's been like 5 or 6 years. So I was great for about a year and a half. Then I started waking up in the middle of the night again. I started taking the morning pill of the Vitex, and I was no longer having the moisture issue, but I was sleeping better. So that seemed to take care of it. And then I started having, I wouldn't call it hot flashes because I never got sweaty and I never had this like discomfort. I just know that I felt warmer than I usually felt. Like I was the person who was always bringing a sweater or scarf places, especially compared to my husband, because my husband was always warm and I was noticing that I was dressing lighter than he was. And so then I had been seeing an acupuncturist at this time, and she recommended these herbs, these Eastern herbs called Yin Replenisher. Again, I think this is all on that list in my Amazon picks, but by a company called Dragon Herbs here in Los Angeles. And so I added that in, and that took care of everything. And then maybe a year later, I was having trouble sleeping, And a friend of mine recommended this AM/PM supplement formula. I looked at the ingredients, and these are all herbs that you've heard a lot with regards to perimenopause, like black cohosh and those types of things. And none of those herbs were in the yin replenisher, and Vitex was also not in those herbs. So I started taking that too, and that took care of everything. So for a couple years, I was doing these 3 supplement formulas, and they were taking care of everything. By the way, there are way more perimenopausal formulas now on the market just in the last couple of years, and a lot of them do have Vitex in them, as well as the black cohosh and all that. So it's becoming more well known. Um, those just weren't available when I first started taking Vitex. So that's why I was taking the single ingredient. And it did great for me for a long time. So I was doing all of those for, 3 or 4 years. And then about a year and a half ago, I saw a documentary called The M Factor. And it was the newest science on menopause and perimenopause. And by the way, if you're not familiar, menopause is a finish line. I don't even know why we talk about menopause so much, because literally menopause is a single day in time. And what it recognizes is that you have not had a period for 365 days. That's what it says. Perimenopause is the marathon that takes place before you get that finish line. So as I said, I am at year 11 of perimenopause. I think this might finally be the year. I think 2026 might be the year that I officially hit menopause, because I have gone now like 7 months without a cycle. So this might be the year. I'm going to throw a party. All the food's going to be red. So I saw this movie called The M Factor. And in The M Factor, they talked about how protective estrogen can be for your brain, for your heart, for your joints, all sorts of things. And that the old study that said that estrogen wasn't safe had been debunked, yada, yada, yada. When I saw that movie, I decided, okay, I'm going to switch to estrogen. Plus, the one benefit of the estrogen, so estrogen, my estrogen is a patch. I stick it low on my abdomen. And the one other thing that's really great about the patch is that because it's absorbed through your skin, it means your body isn't having to digest all of the supplements. So I feel like it's good because it kind of gives my, digestive system a little bit of a break from processing more pills than it has to, if you will. So I have an estrogen patch now that I wear, and then in relation to the estrogen patch, you have to also take a progesterone pill, because you have to have the progesterone and the estrogen balanced. And so when I started doing those, I weaned myself off the other supplements, and I feel literally exactly the same as I felt when I was on the Vitex, the Yin Replenisher, and that other formula. So maybe those herbs were somehow supplementing my estrogen, but I literally feel no difference between those. So if you don't want to go on estrogen, then there are herbal supplements you can take. And if you are interested in trying estrogen, then I would say that, at least my experience has been seamless. I was completely asymptomatic for, a lot of the things that people complain about with perimenopause, and I am still completely asymptomatic. Okay, so there's that. Now, other supplements that I take, in first thing in the morning, I take these 2 supplements right here. By the way, you'll see I have a lot of supplements in these little green bottles, because they come in such big bottles that it's hard to store them. So for instance, this is my multivitamin. It comes in this gigantic bottle. I put this gigantic bottle high up in the cabinet, and I can put this bottle like right on my counter so that it's staring me in the face, and I'm like, I must take you. That's just how I have to do it in order to remind myself It says what it is on the cap. I wrote that down. And I like having all the matching bottles because they're pretty and they're fun. And, if you've heard me talk about habits, the best way to establish habits quickly is to make them fun for yourself. So the green color is not just about it being pretty, it's about making it something I want to interact with. I talk about that too with regards to your planner. Pick a planner that you find compelling so you want to spend time with it. That's how you help create a good habit faster. So I have so I'm just going to tell you in the order that I take things during the day. Okay. So I start with this NMN CoQ10. And I'm not sure if this is on the website, but if not, I will add it to the show notes. But this one is supposed to be really good in terms of cellular renewal and cellular energy. And I heard about this molecule, I guess is the right term, NMN. I heard about this in one of the health books that I had read with regards to really help benefiting cell repair. So I had actually heard this fascinating, I read this fascinating book where they were talking about as you age, your cells, it's like they forget what they're supposed to do. Because they all start as the same sort of cells and then they specialize and they become skin cells and heart cells and all that. And that literally as your cells age, they no longer perform their job as well, which, I feel like that really helped to explain to me like why as you age, your skin gets really thin. Well, it's because it's like your skin cells are forgetting they're supposed to provide a barrier. And so NMN might be one of the molecules that can help your cells work better. So that's why I started taking it, because I am going to be 52 this year and I need my cells to know what they're doing. Thank you, cells. Okay. So I start with that in the morning and I write on it. This helps me keep track, because I'm looking down on it when I'm, opening the drawer where these are all stored. And so it says NMN 2 in the AM. So that just helps make it easy for me to remember. Then I also take first thing in the morning this chewable vitamin K. And I don't have the original bottle for this. I feel like there's something else. It's like K plus something. Maybe it's calcium. I don't know. Or I don't know. I'll have to look at the bottle. I'll put it in the show notes. But I was told that vitamin K becomes important as we age because it helps to keep your calcium in your bones and out of your bloodstream. So apparently, as we age, for whatever reason, calcium can get leached out into our bloodstream, and that can contribute to osteoporosis. And so vitamin K helps to keep the calcium in your bones. Now, here's the thing. Do I feel noticeably different taking either of these supplements? No. Some people argue that supplements just lead to expensive urine. Maybe that is true. However, I can tell you that there have been times in my life when I was less healthy, and I definitely noticed that supplements kept me well more. And in terms of vitamin D, I didn't feel any different, but my blood test said I had low vitamin D. So maybe my sunny disposition helped me to overcome some, because this is, it regulates mood, vitamin D. So maybe I didn't notice for that reason, but I can absolutely tell you perimenopause, all those symptoms I was having, felt a major difference when I took the right supplements. So, there are going to be some things where, you just don't feel the calcium leaching out of your bones until it's too late. So, you're going to have to decide, but I feel like this is inexpensive insurance for things, working well. And, as a 52-year-old who is still super, super active, I actually just stopped playing soccer because you know what? I've decided my feet were just too important and I pulled something in my right foot and it took longer to heal than I wanted. And so I was like, nope, not going to do that anymore. But I took many a tumble on the turf of that soccer field because I like to play aggressively. And you know what? Nothing major. The injury on my right foot was actually had to do with me duct taping my cleat together because it had delaminated, and apparently I duct taped it too hard and it like something on my foot. But all the tumbles that I took, playing goalie or whatever, I never injured any part of my body. So, seems like my bones are in good shape. Okay. Then as the day progresses, and I eat something. This is the first thing I eat, this green smoothie. I will then take 2 of these trans resveratrol plus with pine bark extract, and this is antioxidant support for heart health. And you can see, again, I write 2WF2 with food. I also take, and I just recently ran out, I'm expecting the delivery today. I also take a supplement called choline, CHOLINE, and that one is brain support. So when I am eating this, I take 2 of these and I take 2 of the choline. So that's the next thing I take. Then when I eat lunch, I take my multivitamin, and this one is, here's the big bottle, specially formulated for women 50 plus. So it also has some vitamin D in it. So I don't always supplement with this. I kind of will add a little extra one of these once in a while, but I do get vitamin D in here already. And there's some other things. There's like a memory health blend. There's a skin health blend, healthy aging, free radical protection blend. So those are the things that get added to it for, people that are older. And my husband and I both take the 50 plus formula. So he has the men's 50 plus, but it's the same brand of formula. And I also take an omega-3 fish oil, and my husband takes all of these as well. Yes, except that he has, the men's version instead of the women's version. And then the omega-3 fish oil, 1,000 milligrams. It's also brain. And by the way, I also notice with the omega-3 fish oil, I do feel like it helps keep my skin more elastic, because there was a time when I wasn't taking it regularly and I felt like my skin was really dry. And I just noticed this because I noticed the same thing with my dog that when she's getting salmon skin, I feel like her skin and her coat are glossier. So I do notice that difference. And then at night, I take magnesium, 1 thing of magnesium, and this helps a lot with cramping and restless leg syndrome, both of which were issues that I would have. I had this a lot when I have it when I get dehydrated, restless leg and cramping. And I had it was something that I had to deal with constantly when I was pregnant. And for a long time, I was actually taking spoonfuls of molasses, because molasses is really, really high in not potassium. However, someone said to me, you know what? It's probably not potassium that you're low in. It's probably magnesium that you're low in. And so I started taking magnesium supplements, and darn it, they were right. And it has to be the right kind of magnesium, because there's a few different forms. There's like magnesium oxide, magnesium citrate. Again, I don't remember exactly which one this is, but I will put it in the show notes. And so I take 1 of these at night. Magnesium is also really important for helping to sleep. For mood, it can also, I guess, help keep you regular, which is why you often see calcium and magnesium together, because the calcium will bind you and the magnesium will relax you. So my entire family takes magnesium at night to help get a good night's sleep. So 1 magnesium and then my 1 progesterone, that's when I take it, is at night. So these 2 together at night. And then I just want to point out a couple other supplements really quick. This is a immune boosting one with echinacea and high amounts of vitamin C. Echinacea is one of those herbs that they recommend you only take it when you need it. So I have this literally for just if we're going to travel, like if we're going to get on an airplane, we'll take it for a couple days in advance. If we are not feeling well, then we'll take it. So it's not something we take all the time, but it is something I have in my house. And then the final supplement that I want to talk about is my electrolyte supplement, which is basically kind of like, a powdered form of Gatorade. And I take this when I know I'm going to sweat a lot. So if I'm going to go on a long hike or it's a really hot day, I will supplement with this. And this is the cleanest. And this is it definitely in that tinyurl.com/my Amazon picks under the perimenopause supplements, because I definitely notice that I get dehydrated easier. And this one is the cleanest I have found in terms of it's only sweetened with stevia extract. For color, the only thing it has in there is beta carotene, which is the same thing that gives carrots the color. And so it's the cleanest electrolyte powder I've seen. And I love this flavor because my mom's family is from Hawaii. And this is actually what we call POG, passion fruit, orange, guava. It's a flavor very popular in Hawaii called POG. And so I highly, highly recommend this. And thank you to Emma from Scotland. I look like a Roman goddess. Wow. Thank you, Emma. And thank you for joining me. How is Scotland? I love Scotland, by the way. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. I even went to the Isle of Skye. And so those are all the supplements I take. And I feel like I'm aging well. I mean, 52, my skin feels better than it did in my 40s. No, maybe 30s. 30s. My skin feels better than it did in my 30s, because in my 30s I was kind of just like allowing youth to take care of everything. But I was starting to notice, my skin just felt dry and it felt gray. And if you watch my skincare podcasts from a few weeks ago, you'll hear me talk about this at length. So I feel like at 52, things are working well. And in many ways, I feel like things are working better than they were when I was younger. So there you go. All my supplements. Thank you for joining me. Next week, I'm going to be talking about movement, and I'm going to start talking about fascia. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to show you all my fascia toys. There are a lot of them. And look, I don't expect you to go out and get all these supplements or get all these fascia toys. I'm 52. It took me a while to get here. I accumulated things slowly. Okay. So just pick one thing that you want to get better at and just do that one thing. So if that one thing is, vitamin D, because I'm stuck in an office all day long and my immune system seems compromised and my mood seems compromised. Well, the science says, again, I'm not a doctor, but the science says that vitamin D can help with those things. So help support those things. So, pick one thing that you're concerned about and just do that one thing. And then once you do that one thing, and that's a habit of yours, pick another thing. Again, if you click on this QR code, if you sign up for any of my, free lists that I give to you, at the end, I will send you emails. And at the end of that email chain, there's one that's all about how to start something new. Because I know that it can be hard. Like, okay, you gave me this great information, but I just don't know how to get started. Take in the information, think about it, but you will get an email that is all about how to get started. So don't worry about that. Just, you're in the thinking phase, think about it, learn, and know that whatever it is that you want to improve at, whatever in your life you want to change, is possible. Just do it one step at a time. You will get there. And who knows, at 52, you might be healthier than you were in your 30s, like I am. So there you go. So thank you for joining me. Next week, I'm going to start talking about movement and fascia. I'm so excited. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. And remember,